We finally got our answer to what TECCA has been up to, and the mystery has been blown wide open. Let's talk about the Chair Company, episode 7. As always, full spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, do not go further. Go watch the episode, leave a like, come back, and then we can talk about this because there's a lot going on. I'm waving my hands a lot. Let's just get into it. First half of this is going to be the bits that I thought were funny and just a rundown of like any I think you should leave isms or friendship references, and then the second half will be the plot breakdown, what's going on with TECCA, and just generally where is this going. First up, let's talk about the I think you should leave isms. This is the first episode where I haven't found like something that made me think of a specific sketch from I think you should leave, but there were many lines and characters that felt like they would work on that show or felt like they were ripped right from it. You got the guy telling him about the bugs who says, "You like turkey? They stack turkey" at the sub shop. That he's referencing that's across the street or around the block from the Delaware City Hall. Then you got the guy who works in the adult shop and the guy that's shopping in that shop just acting weird, and the whole thing about how that like running water sculpture had soap in it because it looks like waves, and he's like, no it doesn't. That whole thing, very I think you should leave, that one had me laughing. And the fact that he was stealing his photos for some reason and the guy in the store is just like, he does that. Honestly, the whole here's baby, meet baby, and the rat poison bit, and how there was rat poison from the dog's tooth in his bat bite or whatever he says. That one got me. I feel like even though this one really is pushing the plot forward and giving us a lot to chew on, it still had these little moments of ridiculousness, and I'm glad to see that this has been very consistent throughout the show. Even got the guy in the pub talking to Braken, being like, let's go to your house, man, let's get the hot tub. Also the pepper patty ball guy, who, my God, when it cut to him at the table and he was pretending to eat and then he pops one of the balls in his mouth, that got me really good. There were some other bits that reminded me of the movie that came out earlier this year, Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. That movie was actually directed by Andrew DeYoung. He's directed a couple of the episodes. He did the pilot, and then he did this one. I think he did a couple in the middle too, but he wrote and directed Friendship. And this show, I'm not sure how deep he's involved with it, outside of directing. I don't know if he's written some of these. I think there's different writers on there. John Solomon, I think, is a writer I remember seeing. But this has that same like DNA. It's that same uncomfortable humor and vibe, and that really just richly textured visual look that looks like it came right out the 70s. By the way, the cinematography of this show, we got to talk about it because there are shots in this that I just love. I love seeing the film grain, but even more so, there's zooms that they use. There's one in the first episode, the pilot, the very last shot of that episode is like this weird zoom where everything's getting compressed and it's like changing the space of the background and his face, and it looks like it's going through two lenses. Really interesting stuff. And then in this episode, they're doing cool stuff with the editing and the floating head guy, which we'll get to in the recap. And also just the room he's in with the purple or the pink lighting at the end. I just think it's so well done. It looks so good. It's got a very nice, deep atmosphere to it, and that needs to be called out. And even outside of the visuals, also similar to Friendship, Ron goes to a sub shop in this. There's a Subway in Friendship, which is a pretty big plot, well, not a plot point, but a really good gag in that movie. If you haven't seen Friendship, go check that out. It's also on HBO Max. Well worth a watch, especially if you like this show. But he also loses a phone. Ron's lost, I think, 2 phones, maybe 1. I don't know. It feels like there's moments where he drops his phone and he's saying, oh crap, my phone. He goes to a store. I was like, are we going to see T-Boy? Where's he at? Then you have Ron in the car talking to Natalie, talking about how the guy was a pig, he's a pig, and that's very similar to some lines in Friendship. And whether these things are intentional or not, they're probably not. It's still fun to see these little mirrors, these little flickers of other things that Tim Robinson has done. All right, with that out of the way, with all that, we gotta laser focus. It's time to we gotta laser focus. I am trapped in a cycle of saying the same thing over again. We got some plot details. Let's break it down. So this episode starts with Tim Robinson coming back to his house after the last episode ended with him seeing a room full of hundreds of TECCA chairs. And this was interesting because it was like a callback to episode 1 where we see him like having trouble sleeping. He's got the worst pillow in town. It's like it's made of metal. And now we see him sleeping soundly. They have these flashes in the editing of him smiling, looking at the chairs, which I think was like, it had an interesting vibe to it, a little bit unsettling, but it's very interesting to see the juxtaposition of that with him just sleeping like a baby, which I think is funny and sort of speaks to his state of mind throughout this episode. But then we are introduced to Baby. Meet Baby. It's the new dog that Ron brings home. And then he reveals to his wife that he pushed his boss and is now on a suspension, and they're trying to decide whether they're going to let him come back. Now, all this is going on while Baby has unfortunately bitten into a rat trap, and it's unclear whether Baby has bitten the rat or the poison, and that leads to the joke I mentioned earlier about how there might be poison in Ron now because Baby bit him, and all the Baby stuff was really just ridiculous, but I think it speaks to his character and his state of mind, just as the editing did, because she references, Barb, his wife, references that he misses Larby, who is the dog we saw in the flashback of episode 5, I think, or 4. This is interesting to me because Ron lost a dog, the other dog passed away, he goes back to Fisher Row Bay, and then now he is suspended, doesn't know if he's going back to Fisher Row Bay, and he gets another dog. And I'm wondering if, like, that's just him trying to just keep himself busy. I guess he's the kind of guy who, when things go wrong, gets a dog. But I felt like it was something that we should probably look at as something going on with him. This is also the first episode where Ron is really, like, having conflict with his wife, because there are those brief moments with Seth's drinking in the last episode where she said, like, I thought you were going to talk to him about it. She's asking what's going on with him. And we later find out that she knows, she was told that he's investigating some mystery. And so it really paints Barb in a good light because she didn't try to stop him. She didn't say anything. She kept it a secret. And she really is doing everything to try and make him feel like he is contributing and being part of the family. And she's giving him chances. But this was the first time where that kind of goes south. And she's had enough, basically, after hearing that he lost his job again. And it's during this conversation that we find out that Barb's investor, Alice, is going to be throwing a party and that they're supposed to go tonight. We then go back to Ron in Delaware City, and it seems to be staking out the Public Works building, but he goes to see a man who's going to tell him about the bugs that were in his house and where this guy also saw them. And so we get this scene where this guy tells him, I saw them here, 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 they're in this area, and it's starting to feel like this is indeed connected to the Delaware City government. Now, in the hopes of trying to peel this onion layer back even further, Ron goes to the Delaware City Department of Detention and Probation to see if he can find anything else there, because the guy told him that he has also seen the bugs there. But of course he can't go in because the so-called pig is outside, the guy who saw him in the last episode going into the city, the Public Works building, in which he told him he was Debbie's brother and then ran into the room full of chairs. So this guy recognizes him and he can't go in there. And that leads him to another location. But on the way there, what do we find but an adult shop? And you're asking yourself the question I asked myself, which, what the hell? He all of a sudden decides, hey, wait, these pictures from episode 1, maybe this guy can tell me what's going on in these dirty photos and if it's connected to government conspiracy. And I thought this moment was ridiculous. It doesn't really add much to the plot, but it was just another funny thing and another sort of thread that was cut off, I think, in this, because I think we were wondering what was the deal with the copier and the pictures. I feel like we still don't know, but at least now we know that it seems ancillary, because the guy is just like, whoa, these are modern, these are new, and he's just being weird. I don't know what to make of this scene, actually. It feels like it's just there to add a little bit more comedy to this episode, because this one, I think, is probably... I don't want this to sound too negative because I still enjoyed and laughed my ass off in this, but I think it's the least funny episode. I can see them wanting to put in another little goofy moment, another scene that adds a little bit of levity to the situation and does cross off or cut one of those red ribbons we have on our conspiracy boards. Funny enough, though, while Ron is at the adult shop, Natalie is at the Public Works building in Delaware City, and she's trying to find the purchasing director, Teresa Bonaventura. And we'll get back to her findings in a little bit, but while she's there, Ron has decided to just go eat some lunch, and he's at the sub shop that the guy mentioned earlier. And it turns out, while he's sitting there eating his sandwich, he sees out the window that people are loading chairs onto trucks. And now the chase is afoot. He follows the truck to another building, and it's TECCA. And there you have it. They are loading all of these chairs into another truck, into this building. TECCA is indeed involved with all of this. It's finally snapped, but the question is, what are they doing and why are they doing it? Also, side note, I forgot to mention, Jesus, him hitting that kid with the rock was kind of brutal, but also a little bit funny in like this is insane sort of way. But that was also something that was really random, because the second you saw those kids pop into frame I was like, ah, no, what is this going to be? Because, of course, he's now at the precipice of finding out what the hell's going on. And, of course, it leads to kids just throwing rocks at him, because that's what happens in this world. Luckily, Ron runs away, though, and he gets away, and he goes to pick up his phone, which was thrown into water at the adult shop. Now that it's fixed and things are loaded back onto it, he reactivates it, and oops, the Tamblaze group chat is going off. And now this is where we learn the big question that we have been waiting to know this whole time. What is going on with TECCA? What are they doing? And that turns out that they are taking broken chairs and replacing the parts and selling them back to companies for a profit, for more money. And this has all come to fruition because the Tamblaze shirt chat, a guy found out that this place is doing the same thing. And we got to see the guy from episode 2 again, which was very fun. He had one line in this, but still he ate that up. I gotta say, I enjoyed the floating head thing. While Ron is reading this long text, basically spelling out this whole story about this guy who returned a shirt, came back a month later, and then the shirt was stitched back up with long sleeves and sold back to him for double the price. It was really cool to see this guy's head floating in and out, and how angry he was at a seemingly mundane thing, but when you think about it, his money is getting stolen from him, and they're being a little unethical, let's say. But that whole thing was funny. Hey dog, look at my hippie shirt. But funny enough, this is what snaps Ron into realizing that TECCA is doing this just with their chairs, and that it's involving with the government. It's just all embezzling money essentially, but we just don't know who's behind it yet, because we got to find out what Teresa Bonaventura is about. She's the one who purchases all this stuff for the government. So we have to really see what she's about, and then Ron goes to visit her. Kind of a sweet scene where he walks in and she's not like afraid or freaking out. She's just watching House Hunters on TV, and she's just laying there with her crackers and various dip, I think, was on that tray. But she asks him, hey, can you move this closer to my head? And then he goes in and he does it. And it's really this weird, like, sweet moment, which I feel like we don't get from Ron a lot. And then she just says that, yeah, she still works there, but since she got sick, they just kind of take her picture every year and leave her in there. And so essentially she's like a figurehead. She's like the other ones at Red Ball Market Global. I got on the first try that time. They are the same thing, where they're just photos of people, and it's a shell corporation essentially. And so Teresa is essentially working there, but someone else is purchasing all this stuff, and she's just there as a name or a person to blame. And the scene with Teresa ends in a funny way, where the clock goes off and she starts making noises, and Ron's doing like ooh, ooh, and you're just like, what's going on here? Where are the answers, you know? And we get them, because all Ron has to do is go see Mike Santini. And of course we get some more Wazy Waynes through the intercom, which is always hilarious. This also is interesting to me though, because Ron immediately apologizes to Mike. And I'm not sure if he means it or not, you know? It feels like Ron is really tapping into that, like, manipulative side that he has, because I think he knows that he needs Mike to go watch this guy because he has to go to Alice's party. And the only way to get Mike to cooperate is to say, I'm sorry for Seth's party. Is it possible that Ron is growing? Maybe. But I don't know. It's interesting to see that he just immediately goes to, like, I'm sorry, blah, 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 says exactly what he needs to say, goes in, and then he gets Mike back on his side. We also get to see the little man again, which is very fun, from episode 2, the guy who was in his closet, and he refers to Fisher Robey as Professor Robey, which was another just funny bit. But now it's time. It's time to go to Alice's party, and we're going to change the trajectory of the show in one sequence, because we get to Alice's party. Ron meets the weird guy who's got the pepper patty balls in his jacket, because he's just there for the dinner, but also, hey, it's okay if they got nothing I like. I got food on me. And then he's just trying to get out. Ron is obsessed with what's going on with Bracken, or Braken, I think he says. He is being watched by Mike Santini, and he's getting talked to about a hot tub, as I mentioned much earlier. And Ron just wants to be there. And so he's trying to look for any excuse to get out. And this is really pissing Barb off, because she's finally seeing him as like this mooch almost, you know? Anyway, we get introduced to Alice Quintana, who is an investor for Barb's pump machine, and she's going to announce it at this party, and Barb's going to make a small speech, which is revealed to her in this very moment. And then Ron's just at the party. and he starts snooping around. He ends up in this room that is just immaculately lit, like I mentioned earlier, and the pink lighting and just the set design. They went off with this, like just dressing this room. And he sees a bench table with a bunch of pictures. And let me know if you had the same reaction I did. I was like, he's definitely going to see her with somebody. I thought it was going to be her with, like, Jeff from Fisher Robey, or perhaps Jim X, whoever that is. Will we find out who Jim X is? Will I stop asking that question? I'm trying to think if that was confirmed in this episode, but I don't think it was. But we do see that she was in a photo with Teresa Bonaventura. And of course, at that very moment, he gets a call from Oliver Problo revealing that it wasn't Maggie S. at all, it was Alice Quintana. And that's when it all goes down. Alice is the one who is in league with TECCA. She is behind all of this, and now she's in league with his wife. But of course, the guy from the acting class, the one with the tattoo of the four stripes who makes the websites, attacks him and tries to put a pill in his mouth. And it's like, what? They're trying to take him out now. And luckily, Ron pushes the guy off of him. And then who's there but Alice Quintana herself? And we have this hero-villain moment where they meet, and he's like, I know what you're doing, you're TECCA. And she's like, I dare you to tell. I dare you to tell. But she thinks he won't do it. Because now this is the big reason for this episode is, and I think the show maybe, will Ron, when he's presented with an opportunity to do the right thing, well, not the right thing, because you'd be then turning a blind eye to embezzlement and evil government antics, whatever, what have you. But he has the opportunity to be selfless for once and put his wife above himself, or really anybody else above himself, and maybe not make a scene at this party and not tell her, because this woman is going to invest in Barb's company. If you look back at that flashback, this was her dream. They both stopped to do their dreams together. And then Ron kind of, he doesn't really support her too much. So this is his moment to do that, and it's a tough choice. But he even says to her, you're stupid. I'm going to tell. And this leads to the party again, where Barb makes her speech, and Ron just can't do it. And the final shot is him dancing with her and like looking into the mirror, crying, because I think he realizes he doesn't know what to do. He really wants to stop this corporation, this evil thing that's been plaguing his mind, has made him paranoid. All this stuff has happened because he's found out this stuff and he's on their trail. And if he does that, it'll probably not do any good to his marriage, and it'll really just devastate his wife, because she's finally found someone to invest in her company, which is her dream. And I really think that is the crux of this episode. It is the idea that Ron needs to make this choice, and if we're just going by what the episode ends with, he decides not to say anything. Now, I could very well tune in next Sunday and see that in the first 5 minutes of the episode, we're still at the party and Ron decides to do it. But until we see that, I think Ron has made the selfless choice, which may not necessarily be the right choice for, general morality, but it might be the right choice for him. I'm curious what you think. What did you think of this episode? I know it was like more heavy on plot. We got some answers. Were you someone who was really into seeing something crazy come out of this, or like what was your reaction to the reveal that Alice Quintana is behind it, the investor of Barb's company is behind it, and what Tekk is really doing just to make profits and sell essentially refurbished chairs, and that's why his broke, because it must have been one of those chairs. Leave your thoughts in the usual place, and we can talk about it. Also, let me know if I missed anything. I tend to go off the cuff with these videos because we gotta talk about it as soon as it's done. So if I missed anything, let me know. And I'm probably gonna put up a couple more videos. We're gonna dive into the psyche of Ron this week, I think, before the finale. So if you're interested in any of that and you made it this far, thank you for watching, and look forward to more videos on the Chair Company before the season finale next Sunday.